Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services. And I got to tell you, I'm excited. It's been a few weeks since the show has been on. And today is actually episode 125. It's hard to believe, but it's actually been over 4 years at this point. And it's been a lot of fun. And there's always new things and new challenges. And this week, we're going to talk about some of those things and how to apply them. The scope of today's discussion is going to be holding an event in a non-traditional space. And we're going to take the behind the scenes perspective. And I think you're going to find it pretty cool. Before we get started, let me just remind everybody how you can find us. Okay, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. While you're there, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Of course, pass us on to your friends. If you're watching live, drop a comment, be a part of the show. And look, if you miss anything, you can always go back and see any one of those other 124. And afterwards, I'm sure that Alexa's going to put something together, and you can check that out on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So let me tell you about what we're going to do in this behind the scenes episode. So we work in a lot of non-traditional spaces, office buildings, lobbies, cafeterias, retail stores, parking lots, you name it, we've worked in it. One of the most common is in warehouses. The good news is an industrial warehouse is probably one of the best places for us, especially for us to set up anything that's larger scale. It has a lot of negatives too, but there's usually plenty of space. There's plenty of power. There's potential rigging, depending on the situation. But there is a lot to consider, especially if it's a working warehouse. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And what I thought would be the perfect case study is we'll use our own warehouse and our 40th anniversary celebration that we had just this past February. And to compound the complexity to some of that, we literally had shipments going out that morning and a full show the next day to prepare and to get out of the warehouse. So really planning was critical. So let me bring up some slides here. Let's bring them to stage. So at least twice a year, we transform our warehouse. This year, we've already done it 3 times, and I expect at least 2 more. That could be a magazine or a marketing photo shoot. We demo large equipment that we're going to use out in certain venues. We've hosted our own holiday party many times. And annually, which is coming up very soon, we have our Pirate University training. So now in this case, for this event, our 40th anniversary as a company, we were really shooting for a higher quality cocktail party. Roughly 125 people, music and entertainment, because it has to be a little higher end than a training. So let's go, let's look at some slides here. Let's say, how do we go from a working warehouse like this? You can see there is an enormous amount of stuff to this. Looks a little different, right? And who the hell are all these people anyway? We just come to the end of this part. As you can see, there's food, there's drinks, there's people, there's technical, there's lights and video all over the place. And how about these two? Amazing. So the question is, how do you do that, right? So the first thing is you got to start with a plan. And in this case, a floor plan that is accurate and detailed. And then if you could add renderings, like these 2 images down the bottom here, to showcase what you want it to look like, that's a pretty big plus. Our advantage, we literally do this work for our clients every day. We measure, we create floor plans, we offer suggestions, ideas, and then create scenic sets. So, of course, we have the skill in-house, and that's a pretty big advantage, to have the equipment and the skill in-house. But in general, we start at the entrance point, right? And you got to see what is our clients, who are the guests, what are they going to see? So we happen to create something for when they walked in, that they would walk in, they would know exactly where to go. And that was through this entrance, which you saw kind of quickly in that video, but we'll cover more. Let's just move forward here. All right, so this was that main entrance, right? As people walk in. We're going to say it's a humble entrance. So as we're going along, you can transform with some lights. It looks very different during the nighttime. But what about that walk in? Now, most warehouses have very harsh overhead lighting. So we knew that we didn't want to use that. Plus, the way that it's kind of zoned is also a little quirky and not very conducive to an event, right? So we knew that we had to change that. And so in our case, we added a series of bistro lights, things that were going to give ambient lighting. And then we put LEDs all over the place so that we could tone the entire building and create the energy and the environment that we were looking for. But we didn't have to use those overhead lights. And that's a pretty important thing because you have to know how they're going to function. But look, this was one of the ways we did it and transformed to go from that to that. All right, but let's keep going because all this is kind of, it becomes a pretty big planned event. So you're going to need a detailed run of show. Now, the professional planners, you know what this looks like, but not everybody else does because most of the things we get have maybe 3 things on them and we're trying to figure out a lot as we go along. So for our own show, we came up with something very detailed. Okay, hey, when are tablecloths and chairs going down? When's there going to be a tech run through? When's food arriving? Sound checks, rehearsals, who's doing what when, right? Not just in the room, but then for stage. And stage is usually a separate thing. But for us, we have a DJ first, we had a performance, then we had speeches, then we were back to the DJ, then we're going to do a second performance, and we're going to finish with the DJ. That's just at the main stage. So you need someone to be in control of that, right? Someone's got to manage that schedule, stage manager, production manager, some sort of lead person. Now, again, we have an advantage there because that's literally what we do every single day for our clients. So we had an in-house person take the lead. But if you don't have that person, you have to find someone who is skilled in doing that. But let's keep going here to see how this warehouse could transform. So in this case, it's a functional being used every single day. So we have a lot of equipment and it's everywhere. While it's very functional, it's pretty unsightly for a party. So we needed to carve out a stage area, technical area, and we need to hide all this stuff, right? So in this case, one of the ways we hid a lot of the equipment was we moved it into certain places and then we covered it with fabric. So we had drape hiding a lot of our equipment. To create that stage area, we picked out where was going to work the best, as well as defined how much room we needed for everything. And then that became a full stage. Now there's stairs that come up one side. Everything's all laid out because it's planned out. When we're looking for a technical area, in this case, it was pretty important. So, and it's pretty important for almost every event we do. Sometimes we're buried in awkward places, like closets where we can't see or hear anything, or outside of the room. Those are very difficult to manage without eyes and ears in the other room. So in this case, we said, all right, we have a repair area. Let's make that our technical area. And let me see, I think I got one more. All right. Well, actually, this brings us on to the next thing. There's a few things you're going to need for every party or every celebration, right? So we had to call some of our friends for that. Swag, which the running joke is I'm not really very big on swag, but swag, we had to call our friend Peter Benfield. Thank you, Peter. Food, well, we don't cook food, right? And we don't have a liquor license, so we don't manage that element. So food, drinks, vital. Now we have partnership with Capenberry Events for many, many years. So we reached out to our friends, Chef Rob, David Pellin, Peter Herrero, Karen Herrero, Christine, and Michelle, and their whole team. And they were amazing. Takes a lot of people. Michelle headed up that crew of experts. I got to tell you, their food is delicious. Capenberry Events, you guys should all try them. Now, you're probably going to need something else, right? How about a bunch of people? You need a bunch of people to make this event fun. Some of them even have to be fashionable, like our friends Angelique and Jeff here. But there's more important things too. You know, besides all these beautiful people, you do need a good cause. In our case, that was important to us because we've been part of the community for so long that we brought in another partner of ours. We wanted to make, kind of raise awareness and help raise funds for our friends at Make-A-Wish Hudson Valley. So they brought out their team and, they were there, including, an actual Wish kid was right there and telling his story to everyone about how Make-A-Wish helped him and his family. And it's pretty big moment, but let's keep going. We needed a few other things. We need some community support. So we brought in the big guns. We brought in Ken Jenkins, Westchester County Executive. This way everybody knows it's a big deal. We got to throw in a speech or two as well. And Ken is very supportive of all the community. And we appreciate the fact that he was here. And, there's another proclamation brought in. And that's really cool. We've been here a long time. But there's a few other things you have to have. You have to have entertainment. Otherwise, your party sucks, right? I mean, so in our case, we had DJ Harlem, who was excellent. A lot of you guys have seen him. He's been doing a lot of work in the area. So he's, AV engineer during the day, and then by night he turns into DJ Harlem. We also had another performer. Okay, these are all in-house people, by the way. Everyone here is amazingly talented, whether it's in art, photography, writing, music, dance, theater. Everyone comes from all of these creative elements, which is something we really highlighted that night. And in the future, we'll probably talk about that too. But here's Artie and Samantha, and they performed their own set, and they were spectacular. You need a photo booth, right? You can see our photo booth set up behind there. These fine gentlemen of Damon and Ray. And then we have some characters, of course, because every party's got to have characters, and there's, we have a lot of friends here. You, of course, see Maurice and Dawn, and then Maria and Maura. They're highlights of any event. So if you want to have a good event, you should probably invite them. That's all I would say. Let's see. Do we have another performance maybe? So we also have an in-house band, wireless mic and the analogs. And you can see these crazy characters here. And, so they don't just pose for pictures, but they also play music and perform. Feel free to catch wireless mic and the analogs anytime you want. They'll be coming to a theater near you soon enough. But, to finish everything off, of course, we had to bring back DJ Harlem.
Oh, that's right. We party on a Tuesday. We get money. We party on a Tuesday. Here we go. Here we go. Sing with me.
Because who doesn't want to have glow sticks on a Tuesday night? Man, these guys are fun. These guys are fun. It's again, it's all about really how you're going to transform a space. And in this case, it's a raw space. It's an industrial warehouse. There's literally trucks driving in and out, which is why it's so long. I don't know if you remember some of those pictures in the very beginning, but It's a long space. So trucks literally come in and out. And all of our material is on wheels, right? And it's on wheels because it has to move and then get loaded places. So this is kind of an unusual environment. But anytime you can start something with a plan, I think you can come up with a really good thing. And in our case, we were lucky enough that this is how it ended up looking. And it was really, it created the exact environment we were looking for, and the exact environment I think a lot of our guests were not totally expecting, which is a good surprise. Like, that's the kind of fun thing. We got rave reviews from everyone who came. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, there were some people we had invited that couldn't make it. And I think they all were a little jealous at that moment, because there's a lot of pictures floating around the internet. You can see some other pictures and videos on our Facebook page. There's a whole, event page dedicated to it. But how this applies to everybody else is still the same. You have to have a plan once you find that space. You have to consider the timeline of when it's functional for something else, and the time after the event of when it needs to be functional again, because those are really important. You need to consider any permits or anything that's got to be brought in. That's why working with certain partners is really important, because transforming those non-traditional spaces, it allows you to get exactly what you want. You can customize it to be perfect to what your vision is. But you need to budget time, you need to budget money, and you need those right partners. And they're going to help you. They're going to help you develop the plan that's going to lead to the success you want. So listen, that's all we're going to talk about today. Thank you to everybody who watched, and thank you to all of our partners who were a part of our 40th anniversary. So now let me remind everybody, you can find us Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and feel free to drop us a comment anytime. Look, everyone, thank you very much. I hope you have a great week. It's time for me to go. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.